What's up, everybody? This is Andy. I'm here today with 3 absolute dime pieces, and we're going to talk about a little recap of Andy Ngo's trial because we kind of have unique perspective in that we were all there for at least part of it. I was barely there compared to how much some of you were there, but I think it'd be a good time to kind of recap it. Shelley thought it was a good idea too, and with kind of the more recent case settlement, I think it'd be a good time to kind of go over everything and talk about how important this was to ultra-progressive Portland. I just feel like before we kind of go through the first trial, I just wanted to say, like, it's important to me because I worked for a long time in media here in Portland, and initially I felt like I was like, nobody's covering this. Like when I was there, the Oregonian was there. Later, like some other outlets picked it up, but I just still felt like no journalists were like backing Andy. And no matter how you feel about Andy, he's a journalist and nobody should ever be physically attacked, obviously. And I just didn't really feel that at any of the trial, but we can all share our thoughts on that. But first, let's can we just start from the beginning of the first day of the trial, unless there's anything else you guys want to add to what I just said. But otherwise, we can kind of go through it and... yeah.
Okay.
Who wants to start?
Well, I was there the very first day before the public and media were allowed in, and I was there with Katie Davis Court. The Post Millennial had asked me to act as the photojournalist for the Post Millennial. So Katie and I went down there Monday morning, bright and early, 8 a.m. The communication with the court clerk had been unclear about how to register as media. So we'd had some back and forths and gotten actually essentially no answer on how to know if we were officially considered media. So we went down early and we walked in, and I believe they were just going through motions at that point. But for some reason, they decided to not make that available to the public or media. And the court clerk came over and said, no, you're definitely registered, and I'm glad to know you're here, but this isn't open to the public, so you guys need to leave. And we're like, no worries, we'll go sit in the hallway. As we were going out, I could see there was a woman sitting on the bench.
This is Monday, right?
Monday morning, yeah. There was a woman sitting on the bench wearing big dark sunglasses, which is a no-no in court, and a mask, which of course is great in Portland. And she was wearing a wig. And
what? Really?
Yeah. So, and it was Danielle James, who
was it like clearly like you could tell it was a wig.
It was a terrible. It was a terrible. So it probably wasn't her disguise, but it was not a very good wig.
Okay, it's just a fashion choice.
It was a fashion choice, and it was not a good one.
Yeah.
So, and I'm usually pretty nice, but she was heckled us many, many times, and we had tried to avoid her. But the court clerk came up and told her that she needed to leave as well. She'd just been sitting there listening, knowing it wasn't open to the public. And she rode the elevator down with us. We decided to go get a coffee. And she was kind of chatty, and I was like, I know who this is, and I wish we weren't in the elevator with her. She runs the Twitter account PDX Rising, which she runs with Elizabeth Richter, who was one of the defendants.
Mm-hmm.
So,
wait, is it PDX or Revolution?
I thought it was PDX Rising.
Well, that's the screen name.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's like there's a screen name and a handle.
I know it's one of I've seen the account you're talking about.
Yeah. So she runs it with her, and I was like, oh, this is very uncomfortable. Anyway, so Katie and I went back up because we didn't know when they'd finish jury selection and when they would finish the motions. And if they started the trial, we wanted to make sure that we were there because that's what we were getting paid to do. So we sat out in the hallway, and I played a game on my phone and tweeted. And because you cannot take pictures in the hallways of Multnomah County Courthouse. Mm-hmm. And they're not very strict about that necessarily because people get married there and they take photos.
The lighting is beautiful.
Yeah, the lighting is gorgeous.
I would get married in the hallway.
I'll be honest, I was a little weird because I think you first told me about it, and it struck me as like strange because I'm like, it's a public building, like you should be able to do all this. But I also understand the need for it sometimes.
Yeah. So it's the order from the Multnomah County presiding judge. However, I know that it's not always strictly enforced because I've interviewed people outside of the courtroom. I've taken photos and selfies, and being careful not to include people that I don't know, or it's just myself or whoever I'm talking to. But I knew that with this case, they were going to be very, very careful, and I had made clear in the media rules. And the media rules were extensive and very prohibitive of many things that I would consider to be normal for media. So we knew not to take photos out there at all. And at the end of the day, we had been told that they were already targeting Katie and I to get us booted from the courtroom as press,
which wasn't even open yet.
Yeah,
it wasn't open to the public.
Well, they said that we were in the hallway. That they didn't say Katie and I, but we were the only two people out there that weren't part of the jury. Would come out occasionally and sit and take a break, and we literally didn't talk to them, or because we knew. I mean, we've both done this kind of work before, so we were careful, and they had said to the judge that there were two people out in the hallway intimidating jurors and taking photos and video of jurors. And that absolutely, I did see John Hacker. I'm just assuming that he was the one that had said this. But we didn't, we of course weren't doing that. We knew we couldn't. And I wish I had understood then what that was going to mean for Katie and I, and especially me as the trial progressed. I didn't really understand that meant that they were going to target us. The trial had nothing to do with us. We were just there to report on it.
Yeah.
So that was day one.
And I should have done this earlier, but I'm sorry. This is Julie. She's never been on the show. But when did you show up? Tuesday after that, or?
Yeah, I came on Tuesday. Okay. I was there every day.
After that, okay.
From there on. Yeah. After jury selection.
Okay. I did want to mention too, like the media confusion was absolutely real, and even before this, I had emailed somebody with I think Multnomah County or the state, and I think all of us did, but like never heard anything back.
Right.
Like, I didn't get one even auto email or anything, which is strange.
I got one reply back, and that was it, and it just sent the media rules, and they didn't even say yes, you're now registered media, or no, you have to fill this paperwork out. And I sent back 2 or 3 emails saying, okay, I'm still not sure, and Katie said the same thing.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and it was because I also saw this list at least on Tuesday when I was there of I think it was media rules, and it was extensive and it was confusing, so I can definitely vouch for that part of it.
The whole thing was a mess.
Yeah. Supposedly, if you were taking pictures with a camera, then you couldn't also be using your laptop to take notes. So Katie couldn't take pictures with her phone, even if it was then required to be off. Like if she wanted to get a shot because she was on her computer, but she couldn't be online with her computer because that was also a
no. Yeah.
Yeah, no.
Well, and eventually at the end, they started taking people's phones, right? Because
3 days into it, they literally collected our phones going in and out of the courtroom.
Yeah.
It was, I've never seen anything like that.
And at one point, they came out in the hall and they said, anybody that's going to be posting anything on social media at all,
Public,
need to give us like your name, your social media platform,
right.
on this list. And I'm like,
I heard about
They said you had to be part of the media,
basically.
Yeah, it wasn't media. I was like, I said, are you talking about only press? And she said the judge wants anybody that's going to be in the courtroom.
if you're going to talk
you're
about
going
the
to be
case,
talking about the case or any details about the case, anything that's said in court, and you're going to be posted on social media, we want to know. We need to know your name.
Yeah.
So weird, because like I must have heard the second version of that. I must not have been standing with you at the time, because when she came near me, she was saying, you need to be media if you're going to be saying anything online about this, and we need to know who you are and your credentials. So I was like,
and they can't.
There's no way to verify that.
But then the Antifa accounts were basically live tweeting the whole thing,
Right.
and nobody seemed to care, and nobody was pointing it out.
That's because we tend to follow the rules.
They were like as it was happening, they're posting details,
Yes.
and they're talking about people in the courtroom like us.
Yes, they did frequently.
So
And posting it within minutes or an hour.
yeah,
And this is kind of one of the kind of themes that problems I see with this trial of like, if that was the reason, if they're saying, oh, if you're going to post on any kind of socials about the case and you're a journalist, we need to look at that. They're basically deciding who's press.
Yeah.
And if any Antifa member is writing for an Antifa blog or website, they might see that as press and then deem them worthy and other people's not.
It wasn't even press. It was just people's like the Revolution Rising account or whatever, like just saying, hey, this is happening, or Claudio being like, this person is in the courtroom and blah blah blah, like
but just based on like at least that one witness towards the end, I could see how someone in the court would be like, oh, they're fine, Rising or whatever is fine because they're press, or you know what I'm saying, like they could deem them worthy of like tweeting.
They were posting what room numbers we were in, there was a lot of information that was going out that you would think the judge was trying to avoid, that was coming out from the other side.
It felt like
but then
we were being targeted.
Then our side was the one getting blamed for all of the leaks that were happening, which was the reason for locking down everything and taking away people's phones and causing a big, like, dramatic ruckus constantly. These people are breaking the rules.
And before we go, I want to keep progressing to like the second day, but before we do that, I want to just reiterate, like, this is, because a lot of people may not know, but this is about like years ago when Andy was beat up a couple different times. And I remember back in, I don't know when this happened, 2020 or 2019 was the first one?
June 29th, 2019, I was there.
And I remember, and you know, say we have actual witnesses, but I remember people like cheering this, like in Portland, like, yeah, they beat him up and all this stuff. And so this is a trial about that partially. And myself, I don't know about, I mean, I'm sure everyone here agrees, I don't know about the audience, but, you know, I felt like Andy needed some kind of justice because he got beat up pretty bad and nobody ever paid a consequence for that. So anyway, that's what the part of the trial was about, a couple different occasions. But anyway, day 2, I showed up, and I just want to say before we get in there, I'm still pissed because I lost my pocket knife in Multnomah County Courthouse.
Me too. Me too.
I saw a knife sitting like next to a tree planted in the sidewalk, and I'm like, did somebody just try to stash their knife next to a tree so they could come back for it?
They said you could. They're like, you can go stash it somewhere outside.
He told me I could go hide it outside the building.
Yeah, I would have picked it up, but I was headed in, and I'm like, man, there's just a knife sitting here.
Sweet knife.
I just got immediately salty, and I'm like, you can't return property and all this stuff.
They just dump it into a thing. Like,
I'm like, hey,
what are they doing with it?
I guarantee you,
Are they all
somebody takes that
auctioning
home
off?
and like goes through that and like, ooh, I like that.
They
knife.
look through it, or they sell it, or I don't know.
They're like scrubbing the monograms off of all the weapons.
I know, mine was really
These
nice.
mine now.
But anyway, that was
Job perks.
we. I think all of us showed up for that day, and we're there at like 8 a.m. I got my pocket knife taken, and and like nothing happened until, I don't know, 10.
Oh, it took forever. We were sitting there baking in these windows like a broiler.
Yeah, they have. So if you're not in an actual courtroom in this brand new courthouse, they don't really have like HVAC on the outside, so it gets very
it's
warm,
all
and
windows.
it's facing the sun.
It's psychological warfare.
Yeah,
they're trying to break you before you get in.
Yeah, we were joking like they're trying to sweat us out of the building or whatever.
Yeah, it was bad.
So it took a while, but eventually they did open the doors and we got in.
I think I in already. I think I might have, because media got to go in first.
Yeah, some people were going in early. Yeah,
and I
we
remember
were hanging out outside together.
Was I okay?
We were waiting for seats.
So they must have been still doing some of the motions that they'd been doing the day before. A lot of stuff that those are things generally where the media would have been allowed. Now, I know jury selection is sometimes part of that, where they still allow the media in, but you can't really talk about, I'm pretty sure anyway, you can't talk about the jury. And they were very concerned about the jury being concerned about being doxxed. And so they were very careful with that. But they had a lot of motions, and I believe now that they had to do with security issues. And people weren't going to be allowed to be privy to that.
Gotcha.
Which will become a recurring theme over the days of this trial.
And I'll also say that they had, like, this has been mentioned on Twitter Spaces and stuff, but they struck some evidence right when we got in there. That was like the first thing that I saw.
The stuff from the deposition?
Like, deleted tweets, I think it was. Or something.
Yes.
Oh, in the live stream.
They struck stuff from the deposition, right? Like they had to scrub it from the video.
So one of the biggest, I would say, losses for the plaintiff was not being allowed to say or intimate that information had been from Twitter and messages had been deleted between John and Elizabeth, and because they spoke to each other about it. And I know that Elizabeth spoke to other people that you guys would be surprised about in these depositions, and the fact that they deleted a lot of information after they were told that they couldn't, and they did anyway. And it came up in the deposition. It was clear. I've watched highlights of the deposition, and I say highlights because there's a lot of boring information, and so there was a couple of highlights that I watched of each defendant where they were talking about where it's clear that they had lied and deleted important information, and you couldn't even speak about that in the courtroom.
Yeah, it just seems strange. Like that was basically the first thing that I saw happening, and I'm like, oh, okay, so we can't admit evidence that's like been deleted online or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
And
Or
also
just the
I'll
fact
say
that
that
it
it was sorry.
Or even the fact that it happened. You couldn't even say it. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're like, ignore this is it.
This did not occur.
Right.
It never happened.
It's like a Jedi mind trick or something.
Which
Yes.
was such a part of the case.
Yeah, and so the jury never even was able to consider anything like that.
Right.
So.
Yeah. And I'll be honest, it was my first time in a courtroom because I was going to say it was very small. There was like very limited seating. But I was also shocked at how this just might be me complaining about court in general, but how slow everything moves. Like, so every time something like that would happen, the jury would get up and leave, and then they'd talk for 15, 20 minutes, and then the jury would come back in, which takes another 5 minutes, and then they sit down, and then it's like lunchtime, and you're gonna. So I don't know.
I will
I'm
say
just complaining about
it was extra slow and extra disruptive. I've covered other court cases, and I've never seen shenanigans like that.
Yeah.
I mean, there was jurors falling asleep.
Really?
Yes. Yes. I saw a juror that was literally
Nodding off.
eyes closed. No, like
It wasn't
not
typical
nodding
court
off,
case.
just
Fully asleep.
fully asleep.
I saw a photographer taking a nap.
Oh, yeah, not surprised.
He was just like,
There was a lot about the trial that was not typical.
Yeah.
it was-
Well, and part of what I had on my notes here too was like, I just feel like walking into that courthouse, there's so many elements that just felt like they were trying very hard to be not impartial. Am I saying that right?
Yeah.
Like, I was just like, there's no way this can be a fair trial. Just even walking into the courtroom, and then all the stuff that went down just added on top of that, and I'm like, I don't know. I was frustrated just being there the little time that I was.
Ezra Levant said it reminded him of how they used to run mob trials.
Yeah, it just, I don't know.
A lot of chaos.
It seemed like for a courthouse.
Dramatics, theatrics.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say I believe the judge did not have good control of her courtroom. I think she was inexperienced and didn't understand what she was looking at. And I think the defense attorneys essentially ran that courtroom.
oh, they did.
Well,
Absolutely.
And I would agree with that, even just based on the media stuff on the first day I was there. But I want to get into the next few days when like Antifa did start showing up, because I know that's when like the real mess started. And
Yeah.
Well, because there was a call to action put out on Twitter for them to all come to
Yes,
the room
yes.
number. I mean, they
When-
literally put that
Oh,
out
yeah, they did that
to come
more than
support their
once, too.
comrades.
yeah, I felt like it
Comments.
was after the day I was there. I saw that night somebody tweeted that, and they're like, "Show up at 8 a.m. tomorrow," and just calling out.
Yeah.
Antifa
Andy
to
had a
show
lot
up.
of supporters, and they didn't have so many, I think. And so I think
They
that
were
shocked
kind of reacting
them.
to that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and that just goes to show to the tactics that the judge, if the judge was, in my opinion, would have been in control of the whole scenario from the beginning, being the people that were involved. Like with Alan's trial, they separated from day one. There was no, like, there's so much that could have been alleviated, in my opinion, from day one, had the whole entire, from day one would have been handled different.
I believe it was the first full day when we came back from lunch. Myself, Katie had to actually sit with her back to the corner because there were people that were associated with the defendants and Antifa that were like looking over her shoulder, trying to see what she was typing.
Okay.
And so she sat in the very back in the corner, so that couldn't continue. But the rest of us had sat directly behind Andy, but we didn't get back quick enough after lunch. I mean, we were there, but they ran into the courtroom, and like 3 or 4 of them sat right behind Andy and were actually quite loud for a courtroom.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to make any
Sounded
noise.
like basically heckling him.
They were heckling him, and Katie had a question of the court clerk, and they heckled her, said something about her being a Karen. And
It's just so weird. Like, I would feel like the first time that happens, they'd be like, "You're gone."
yeah, I can't
how it
believe it was
usually
allowed.
is.
Yeah,
When I was there, it was dead silent.
yes.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, they definitely pushed the envelope with that day, and every day after they saw they could get away with it.
Mm-hmm.
And
sorry, I just want to say really quick too. I think what you were saying I agree with that. Of like, any judge or anyone in that courtroom should have known, like, they're gonna do this. They're gonna try to be as close to Andy as possible.
Right.
Like, it just shows a general lack of awareness on everyone's part in that.
Well, that's what I was trying to say about like the whole thing with intimidation, is that the tactics that I'm learning that they use is that type of a scenario, and it played out literally in their favor, like 100%.
And that's, we all know that's their tactics.
Yeah. And that's what's so surprising me. It's like nobody in that courtroom knows that they're going to come in here and try to do this stuff. Like,
how would they? Because if they're blinded by the media,
media
you don't
doesn't
know.
cover that,
you don't know unless you've seen
truthfully.
it in person or you've had it happen to you.
Yes.
Otherwise, you just don't know.
because as you'll see, like when we get to the end, just it's so interesting to look at how they started the trial and the conditions, and then at the end, it's like drastically different.
As if they were surprised.
Yeah.
When we finally ended up in different rooms, I was like, oh,
Right. You're finally getting it. Yeah. Like,
Yes,
yeah.
we are middle schoolers, and now
step
we are
one,
like,
1.5, 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that made that trial drag out forever. So
Which lost momentum, which lost testimony. I mean, the whole
I think
thing
it made it
was-
confusing for the jurors
Yeah,
too.
me
Yeah, it was
too.
very
There
disjointed.
So many interruptions.
Yeah. And they're probably trying to figure out whose side is on, which should be obvious, but it's like,
Right.
who are these people coming in here trying to do this stuff? And
Yeah.
but yeah, so after the heckling, what sort of happened after that?
The rest of that day was, so there was 3 photographers, but I don't know that they came back after lunch. It was the Oregonian and me, and then a professional freelancer who doesn't have a boss, just puts his photographs out on the wire. And I'm going to mention, his name is John Rudolph, and he is associated, in my opinion, with Antifa. People
Okay.
on the right call him the Antifa photographer because he'll wade right into the middle of them at any of these events, and he's never touched.
if you have a camera and you're in the midst of them and you're not getting beaten up, you are with Antifa.
That's
You
a
are
good
with
point.
them.
Yeah, it's a great point because I personally have been on the job with like local news and asked Antifa all these questions like, do you want a free press? And they'll be like, nope, we don't want you here. If you're here,
Yep.
they'll put umbrellas in your face, start pushing you and all this stuff.
Yeah, and they've gotten very physically aggressive with all of us to the point where we've been assaulted.
So yeah, if a photographer's there and they're
not bothering
having
them,
that's a sign
Then
that
they
they're
are
probably
together, yeah.
embedded,
Same thing
yeah.
with John
Same
Hacker.
thing at
This
the
is a
Jesus-
man-
Jesus March. He was there.
Oh yeah, he was
took
there.
pictures everywhere. He didn't
He
get...
is well known in the courthouse and much respected. So that should tell people a lot
About John.
about
Yeah.
John Rudolph.
John Rudolph. Okay, yeah.
Rudolph, Rudoff.
I just want to make you weren't talking about hackers.
Who was
Yes.
the one on the first day who had the loud camera?
That was the Oregonian.
Okay.
And that kind of
Because-
camera doesn't have a silent shooting
Well,
mode.
what
That was
I'm
one
saying-
of the rules too.
Okay.
What I'm saying about that is that it was very obvious that there were multiple people taking photos the first day, and it was obvious because one of them was not silent, and every time it went off, it was like whap, whap, whap.
Yeah, I was sitting right behind him and I heard him going off.
The
constantly, yeah.
second day, all of a sudden, Miss Frizz has a problem with people taking photos in the courtroom, and it's like, could you not hear like basically a gun going off all day yesterday?
Yes, it was very loud and very disruptive. One of the actual media rules, which I'd never seen before, but I paid attention to, was they wanted you to use silent shooting mode, which
That is interesting.
I have. Yeah, I thought that was.
And the size of the lens.
Because I'd be willing to
remember
bet
they-
like there's
Yeah.
paid employees out there who don't even know how to do that.
Yes.
Which
I don't
is
have
sad,
a problem with that. I'm just saying that it was so loud that it was really obvious that there were multiple people taking pictures. And then it wasn't until the next day when that person wasn't there that the lawyer suddenly
was
freaked
pointing
out
out.
about
just
people
you.
taking pictures.
It was
And
just
it's like,
It was just
the
her.
second
And
day.
and it's just chilly. So like,
So it's a very.
I don't want my picture taken. What do
very
you think happened
selective-
all day
yeah.
yesterday? Like,
Well, so then we should go to the second day because
It was Miss Nolan.
yes, because it was a very big event and it was the start to me of realizing, oh no, they really are targeting me. And Andy, of course, was like, Andy Ngo was like, you should have known, you know these people. And I'm like, I did not understand. And that's often the case. You don't understand the lengths these people are willing to go to in order to prevent you from doing your job. I mean, now I know. Now I'm just expecting anything and everything. But I showed up the next day, and it's typical on a multi-day trial that not all of the press comes every day, but you would think, considering this is a trial about press, that there would be. Zane Sparling from the Oregonian was there. He's not a photographer. So he wasn't taking pictures, and I was, because I was paid to be there every day with Katie. And I had been taking pictures all morning when somebody came in during the middle of people testifying and sat down behind me. There's 2 rows, and I was sitting on the very end. I could finally get the good seat to get the good shots because the guys weren't there. And the deputy, they had assigned a Multnomah County deputy to the courtroom, which is a little more unusual. Usually they're just in the building and they can call them if needed. But they assigned this deputy to be in this courtroom the entire time.
And that was the same dude, because I saw him.
Same guy
It
every
was
day.
useless, by the way.
Well,
He was nice, though.
He was nice.
I really
and he didn't do anything.
I liked him, but I think he is limited in his job by whatever the rules are. We'll say that.
Because what you're talking about, like, he didn't remove people.
Yeah, he didn't remove people, but I
Somebody
think
got
that's up to
physically
the-
harassed right next to him, and he didn't do anything. He was like, I shouldn't do that.
So this gal came in. She's a bigger gal, and she came in and sat down directly behind me. I could hear her, but I'm not turning around. I'm not looking. I'm doing my job.
I did.
And the deputy,
Oh, yeah.
these 2 saw her. The deputy is sitting in a chair, not on the bench, right behind me.
This is like while the trial's happening.
while the trial
She's
is,
got her big old sunglasses on.
and you can't wear
like,
sunglasses.
bad
And she was
attitude.
told she couldn't wear sunglasses, and she's claimed some kind of
eye condition.
eye condition. She probably has fetal alcohol syndrome.
eye.
I don't know what. So there's something really wrong with her. She is legitimately insane. She's been arrested. She's been hospitalized, mental hospitalization. She is not well. I think she's probably a paranoid schizophrenic from looking at her writings.
This is the person I just want to. So we know she's like a known like disruptor.
Yes.
Of
Taken over police press conferences
Yeah.
and allowed to interrupted city council meetings to the point where they shut it down. And she's saying this, just like this: arrest me. Arrest me.
And they don't.
Arrest me.
And they just go,
And they don't
"Okay."
arrest her.
I,
don't arrest her.
I think I've seen that video, but it's much louder than that. isn't it?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
she's very
Shelley was
calmly.
nice.
She's very calmly. It's more like arrest me.
Yeah, that's like yeah.
And
Well, she's part of the Clinton activists, and she knows Biden and Obama.
oh my gosh, she's so crazy.
That is what she stated.
So
That was the other-
these
Yeah.
guys see her take her rather large hind end and use it to almost knock Katie Davis Court off the bench. And Katie's very
To
tall,
steal her seat.
but tiny.
Yeah.
And just like, what is going on? And I can hear something going on behind me. And then I hear this loud theater whisper: you need to check her press credentials. She has fake press credentials. Whispering to the deputy. And I'm like, I think she's talking about me.
This is like within like minutes of her showing up.
This was
She
an
walked in and
immediately
it went.
second. And Tara said she was like, if I turned around and looked at her, she was like right behind my head.
Oh my gosh.
Well, when she stopped talking, because
right
I was
behind
I was
you.
right
Next to me.
Yeah, I was sitting right next to Chelly, and I heard her, and like obviously we're supposed to be quiet.
Yeah.
So I turned around, and there was only like there was a small amount of room in between Deputy Fawn and Katie, and Haley's a bigger girl. She literally came in, turned her back to Katie, and scooted.
That's what. Yeah, I want to
Literally
know. Was
pushed
it,
Katie aside.
I wanna know,
Katie
did-
was like, Katie looked at me and she was like,
did
and I
it
was
seem
like-
because all the stuff I've heard, like it seemed very intentional. Like
She
it was,
ended up
like,
moving all the way
It had
across.
to be intentional.
Yeah.
She ended up moving all the way across the courtroom to get away from her because, like, the deputy wasn't doing anything about this. And she was like, I don't want to be next to this woman. And
we
she's
knew
staring at what you're doing. So
Yeah.
We knew who this woman was. And I will say, this does connect to John Hacker. And I finally figured it out. John was the defendant. She was referring to, and I saw this she created a Twitter account to tweet at me after this. We all were wearing, not all of us, but most of us,
the QR code.
a QR code. And there was a specific purpose for that had nothing to do with being media. And one of the media rules was that they wanted us wearing media credentials. Now, I don't get my credentials from Post Millennial. They only hire me, and, you can just essentially make your own media credentials. There's no credentialing organization. So I assumed it was for identification. So I just had Tara make me, it just said media and my name, and so that they could identify.
And I'd say that's pretty common nowadays,
right?
For freelancers.
Yeah, they don't
They weren't pressing tape on their helmets,
right?
Yes. Yeah.
Masking tape. So often you don't have a photojournalist on staff. Oregonian is one of the few. So and Postmillennial has no photojournalist on staff, so they have to and then they do hire me. So I had both things on. John Hacker later after the trial said, you had fake media credentials. What was that QR code? It all came from John, and John told Haley, and Haley created this disruption in the courtroom. And I guarantee you, if John told this crazy activist, and that's what I'm going to call her, I guess, then he's already told his attorney. So Haley creates the disruption. Andy's testifying. Andy stops testifying because it's so loud. I have literally said nothing. I haven't even turned around. I took my media credential with my name on it, and I just flipped it over my shoulder so the deputy could see it. I didn't even look at him. So the judge is like, what's going on? And she's saying, quit interrupting the courtroom. I'm not doing any, I'm like not paying attention because I'm doing my job.
This woman is, there's a lot of volume coming from, like, what's...
She was loud.
Okay, yeah.
She was like, loud.
Because if Andy turned around, I'm like, what's...
Andy's on the stand, and he stops testifying.
I got you. He stops talking.
So he stopped talking, and the judge is like, what's going on? He's like, I'm sorry, but there's a disruption, and it's this woman. In the meantime, the deputy takes her outside. She does return to the courtroom later. She's not getting kicked out.
It was I'm not gonna lie.
It was crazy.
Insane.
How long was that? She was out there for...
She was just,
a couple minutes or something?
Well, so I can't say because it caused a bigger disruption.
Okay.
So she created the disruption. He takes her outside. Michelle Burrows, the female attorney that said, I am Antifa, I will remember all your faces, all of a sudden turns to me, and I'd been taking pictures of her all day the day before and all morning, and says, you can't take my picture. And I was like, and the judge is
I think it was generic at first too. She's like, I don't want my picture taken.
But she pointed right at Shelley because I was sitting there and I was like, what are you
She pointed right at me, and I was the only one with a camera. So
that's such a weird thing
what
to
are
say.
you going to do with it? What exactly are you going to do with it?
It showed me
harm her?
as a witness to the whole thing, it showed me how the court was being controlled.
I believe that was
it
court.
literally
It was like reality TV.
No,
it was like being in a episode.
It
really
where it's
was.
like this person conveniently comes in, and then drama happens, and then an accusation.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Dun, dun, dun. Yeah.
Well, it's just such a menacing, authoritative thing to say for a lawyer.
I
to
was
just be like, you can't do this.
She
I
was
was
not
terrified, actually.
She was not worried about the judge at all.
That's
she was
what
not.
it seems like,
nobody was worried about being held in contempt. They were not worried. You could clearly, and that's why I'm kind of even involved in this. Literally, is I just wanted to be in Multnomah County through the trial to witness. I have been involved in attacks from Antifa. In Portland. I've lived here my whole life. I'm not being paid by anybody. It was just an interest that I wanted to go see how the case was controlled within our judicial system.
And that's like a right everyone should have.
Yeah.
Public courtroom.
Anybody can go to these trials. Turns out, though, that's not accurate. Not anybody can go to a trial in Multnomah County. So it actually continues on, and it actually gets worse. So the judge tells Michelle Burrows, I'm going to say her name every time I can, that no, this woman's allowed to take pictures because she's media. And I was literally the only person taking pictures that day.
And you could hear them saying this?
Yes,
Yeah.
everybody could hear
This
them
was the
saying
jury's in there.
The jury's in there. Wow.
No, it was.
So then
That's strange.
the judge says to them, do we need a sidebar? Do I need to excuse the jury? And she's like, yes. And I was like, what is going on? So the jury leaves. And
It was intimidating.
It was very intimidating.
You're kind of like the star, like in a bad way.
You're like,
The villain, I guess.
Yeah. And I'm my job as a photographer is to hide in the background.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to be seen. I don't want to be part of the story. And I am used to them making the journalists the story. That's what Antifa does. They'll make you the story and then blame you for your own assault. But in the courtroom, I've never seen this happen. So they all leave, and I'm like looking at Katie like, oh, I'm remembering that they said they were going to try and get rid of us, but I still think it's not possible. I'm registered media. Why are they treating this like such a circus? Boy, that sure seemed like that was created, because Haley's now gone, but I'm on the hot seat somehow. And I had already been, they'd already implied that we were trying to intimidate jurors, which was not true. So they come back in and they say, we need all of the media's, we need your boss's phone number and your credentials. Go out into the hallway. So, and you guys need to decide a pool photographer. And I talked to Zane. Zane was like, I don't have my camera with me and I don't want to take pictures. And I'm like, that's fine. I'll be pool photographer. I'll make sure that you get the photos. No big deal. So
what point in the day was this, by the way?
This was before lunch.
Okay. Geez.
Oh, they went down early.
It sounds like this should have been like, this is taking all day long.
Yeah.
But they hardly had any time to do anything. And they had this huge disruption. So then they have to go call everybody's bosses. I'm thinking that. Turns out they only called the post-millennial. And Libby Emmons told me that they called her. She confirmed that they employed me, and she said they wanted to know how long I'd been working with them. And she said, I'm going to have to take a look. I'll call you back. She called them back 3 or 4 times with no answer and emailed them to tell them that I had been working with them since June of 2022. So we get called back.
It's such a funny thing, too, because does it even matter? Like, they probably
matter.
were trying to find out, did they hire you like right before? But like, does that even matter?
It doesn't matter.
You're still press, and you're still paid press. Like,
yes, and I am, like, they've used me in Oregon before, so I wasn't even worried about it, but I should have been. So I come back into court. We've decided I'm the pool photographer. The judge gets everybody sit down and says, Oregonian, Mr. Sparling, you are the pool photographer. And he looks like, but I don't have a camera.
I felt bad for him.
Also, probably doesn't know how to take photos, or maybe he doesn't know.
He does. He just said he doesn't like to take photos because he's taking notes. And I tried taking notes and photos one day, and I couldn't do it. So I'm like, he's like, I don't have a camera. And I'm like, here, Zane, I gave him my camera because I said it's all set up. You can just take photos. And
at least that way somebody has photos.
Right, because I wanted photos.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, clearly there's a problem. So I go out. What they said was, if you're not a W-2 employee, you are not allowed to take photos.
Well, I was a strange thing.
But again, she took
No
photographs
freelancers.
the whole day on day one. Like, shouldn't this been a little checked out prior?
Mm-hmm.
So
they just made rules up in the middle. Like,
Yes, that's exactly
they
what
kept
happened.
changing them until they got what they wanted.
That's exactly what happened. So they wanted me gone. They wanted to control the narrative. John has gone on a tear since the end of this trial about the post-millennial and all their lies. He's like, you guys lied about stuff. And I'm like, literally, Katie is taking notes all day long and staying up till 2 a.m. writing a story from her notes.
Yeah, I can vouch for her work ethic during the whole.
Oh my gosh,
she's a workhorse.
She was
amazing.
writing articles day after day, and even when I was there with her, she was hard at work. So
yeah. She literally, we had dinner every night, and I'm like, Katie, you should come to dinner. She's like, I can't. She said, I'm up till 2 finishing these stories. So she had the most complete stories of this. So I'm out now as photographer, and there's no photographer there. And they're like, well, we're going to get somebody to come in if the Oregonian won't. Well, supposedly, if you aren't a W-2 employee, you can't be the photographer. But they okayed and got in John Rudolph, who's a freelancer who puts his photos on the wire. And
sells them.
And he sells them. And when you're a pool photographer, you're supposed to supply everybody else with your photos.
Share the photos, yeah.
He didn't. He made them buy photos. So
I think that might be illegal.
I don't know if it's illegal. That's something I'm going to be figuring out with my attorney.
Just another shady part.
Because I
Super
have
messed up.
had to provide video from court cases to other news stations, and we never once in my life have we.
No,
charged
you don't
people,
charge for that.
And we're competitors, we're
Yes.
competing businesses.
But when the judge decides that it has to be a pool photographer, and I was literally the only photographer there. You have to give. I made sure Zane had all my photos from each day. So I go to lunch. I am actually upset now, and I am emotional, but I went out of the courtroom because I didn't want to show emotion. You're not supposed to have any facial expressions, and I was just aghast. And it turns out, sorry, you guys, I have a cough where I live. It's like,
Smoky.
it is so
You got the
smoky.
smoke down
It's
there.
terrible.
Plus, you're smoking. No, I'm just kidding.
Right.
2 packs a day.
We're surrounded
That's
by
where
fires.
we should start.
Right. So I go to lunch, and I'm not sure if I'm saying it's Ezra Levant or Ezra
Yeah,
Levant.
Ezra Levant. Yeah.
Levant of Rebel News is there, and I'm just complaining, and he's like, well, I can write you a contract to be a W-2 employee, and I'll get my contract guy right on it. So I had a contract to fit in with their rules by 2:30 that day and sent it to the judge, but they wouldn't look at it until after the day was over.
Wow.
So
He was so nice, by the way.
Yeah, and if people
Ezra,
don't know,
He's
a hero.
amazing.
Oh
People
my
don't know
gosh.
he's with Rebel News, which is like a huge.
he is so
Canadian.
nice.
He owns it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah. He's my hero. Like, that was really great of him to do. And he came all the way down from Canada to cover this. So he spent a day, and I gave him all the photos that I had, of course, since he hired me, and continued to give them post-millennial. So the next day, I showed up in the morning. The media goes in before anybody else. And the defense attorney looks at me and says, she can't be in here because she's not media. The judge is not there. Katie is there with me. Just the clerks are there. And I said, actually, I am media. I have a contract, a W-2 kind of contract with Rebel News. So I'll be covering for both organizations. And the judge's male clerk smirks. Like, I'm looking at it, gets on the phone immediately and calls John Rudolph and leaves a message because he doesn't answer, and asks him to come in and take pictures. Now, bear in mind, they said you have to be a W-2 employee,
Right.
and he's freelance.
He's not. Yeah.
So I'm like, great. I'm going to get kicked out again for this essentially Antifa photographer who's sleeping on the job and not taking that many photos.
Shaking hands with Corey.
Shaking hands with some of the people who came to support the defendants.
And staring at people in a very weird way, I might add.
I've never seen him.
He's super
but, yeah.
creepy.
I have so many pictures going back over the years where I've like, oh, there's that guy in the background.
there.
Weird.
Oh, he's always with Antifa and never taking pictures of them, weirdly, which is kind of your job when you're covering events. So anyway, they call him, but nobody, he doesn't come in. So
The whole day. Yeah.
he doesn't come in the whole day. He must have been busy. He's actually a doctor, so maybe he is working. I don't know.
Okay.
So, and I was kind of mad because I'm like,
needs
they're
the
going to
money.
give my job to some.
And then he
Anthony
charges for
Fauci
the
in Portland.
pictures.
Yeah,
Doctor photography.
Dr. Fauci of Portland.
they're going to give my job, a single mom that really doesn't make that much money, to an old white guy who's rich.
Yeah.
And
The
I'm gonna
whole
call in
thing
the
is, like,
doctor.
I would love to do a deep dive into that of preferential treatment to these media, because it just seems really wrong to me.
Well,
But,
they had a real problem. Like, if they could have kicked Katie out, they would have. But I guess it was easier. It was easier to pick on me. But I'm like, no, I got this. I'm taking photos. I took photos all day. I went and edited them, sent them to Zane, made sure he had him, made sure Katie had him. There were some, I think it was that day, the first of the shenanigans with people coming into the courthouse.
okay.
There's a local activist, and I'm going to just choose not to name him because I don't know that he's John Hacker said, and I found this out, that he had filed a stalking order against this man and received one. He actually hadn't. He attempted to file a I looked up the court records. He attempted.
Oh, there wasn't? It's not.
He has
It's
no.
not granted?
No, it was.
So he had a right to be
He had a right to be there
in the courtroom.
This man has actually doxed John Hacker, and I've seen the dox.
Oh, I saw that too.
Yeah, with his phone number and his address, and I don't agree with that, but he did what he did, and it isn't against the law. Unfortunately, I really wish that people would leave each other alone in that way. We need to be able to have safety in our private lives.
Was one of the reasons Antifa does it, right? Is because it's basically legal, but they scare the shit out of people by doing it.
Yes,
and that's basically John Hacker's specialty.
Yeah, it is John Hacker's.
It's what he does.
Yeah, and I've been meaning to say this. I want to say this, and I'm not putting any exaggeration on this. I have heard so many women tell me that this guy stalks them, John Hacker, who's the guy that was a defendant in this case. And I'm not kidding. There's people on all political spectrums. Like, they'll tell me, I don't know what it is about women, but he seems to follow them and
each one of
become
us.
obsessed with them and start posting about it.
He's very creepy.
It is very unsettling. And he has actually, when he's seen me out in public at nighttime covering some of these things, he's actually put out on Twitter that we were there. And he has actually doxed.
It's intimidating.
Yeah. He has doxed people with their address. He's responsible for a lot of very bad things, and that's why he was getting sued.
And it wasn't the first time, right? Didn't he have another case?
He had an actual criminal case from when he assaulted Andy. He's like, I just dumped water on his head. Right, yeah. Well, he dumped water on his head and came after him. And
I only temporarily stole his phone.
Yeah, temporarily.
I didn't really mean it.
He hit the phone out of Andy's hand so hard that it broke the OtterBox case. Yeah. So, and then he grabbed it, and he's like, I don't have fingers, because if you haven't seen him, his fingers have been burned off, but he has like nubs. He grabbed it really hard, so hard it bruised Andy's hand.
I want to say one thing about the observation of how she was targeted in court with Haley and the defense attorney, is that on Twitter, I believe it was John that put out afterwards that it wasn't the disruption, that she wasn't, that John couldn't even hear Haley talking from where he was sitting. So from my perspective as a witness, one thing that's very unsettling to me is that it's either one way or the other. Either because she only dipped in the courtroom and back out for that moment. So it was either she was loud enough that the defense attorney heard her, which made the defense attorney turn around and single out Shelley, or it was premeditated and pre-orchestrated. Like they were working hand in hand. Like either she was loud enough that the attorney heard her, or she wasn't loud enough and the attorney knew when to turn around. Like you can't have it both ways.
Yeah.
I mean, it was loud to me because I was sitting right there. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not going to pretend to
if
know.
She didn't actually hear it, then it's just a planned thing.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. I mean, it was loud to me because I was sitting right there. But I'm not saying John is lying that he couldn't hear her, but it can't be both ways.
Worse.
Either defense, it is worse. It's worse if he couldn't hear, because then the defense attorney had it premeditated and planned for the disruption. Right. Because it was on cue. I'm not like, it's not exaggeration. It was on cue.
I had been told that they wanted us out of there. Yeah. So the idea that it was planned is really not that far fetched. And
if you think about any like defense too, like they're gonna do what they can to win.
Right.
So I could see it happening in that sense.
But with me being in there, that's the kind of stuff that I, like, as an outside more observer, picked up, just from like a public perspective of how things operated that day. Because again, it just couldn't be both ways. It was either it was planned or it was loud enough that she heard her. And if it was really loud enough while the jury was in there, she should have been permanently removed then. Like, it should have been a contempt of court. It shouldn't have been like...
And she came back to court again.
Not that day, but later.
Not that day, another day. So this man that had doxed John came into the courtroom, sat down in the deputy's empty chair, which happened to be right next to me. And I turned to him and I was like, I don't want him to get in trouble. Like, it wouldn't matter who was sitting there. I was just like, you can't sit there.
Yeah, I was just thinking, like, you can't.
Yeah, I'm like, you can't sit there. But he wouldn't have known that. It was just a chair sitting there. So I stood up, and the only place was next to me. I was sitting in the back row. So I stood up, and he sat down, and I looked over, and John leans over to his attorney, Michelle Burrows, and says,
Michelle Burrows.
Whispers to him. And the attorney, like, I don't know if it was Cooper Brinson or Michelle, but they stood up and they're like, we have a safety issue. The jury needs to go out. And it was like really dramatic.
It was.
And I was like,
is it just after you just told him not to sit there? Is it...
Like they saw him there. They know who he is.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Because he had doxed John, and John knows who he is.
Gotcha.
They're not nice to each other. Yeah. That's fine. I personally think that the guy is in the right for not doxing, but I mean,
just whatever he did.
Whatever he did, he was not doing anything wrong. And he was kind of wondering aloud as the jury's going, I don't know what's going on. I'm like, well, John, I think, or fill in the blank. I'm pretty sure they're getting ready to remove you from the courtroom. And he was like, what? Like he was totally confused. And then the judge just told us to go out, so we went out into the hallway. And he walked up to me, and I was like, stop. They're getting ready to kick you out of the courthouse, because I already had caught on to what was going on. So it looked very dramatic, and it was a really big deal. And I believe that is probably when he told the judge he had a stalking order against this man. The man sent me the court records of the attempts to get a stalking order. He couldn't. It's pretty easy to get a temporary stalking order.
Okay.
He couldn't even get a temporary stalking order. So he lied to the judge, if he said that to the judge.
Yeah.
And this man was banned from the courthouse for the entirety of the trial.
A public citizen.
That's pretty weird, yeah.
Before he even said a word or did anything wrong, all the while Antifa are doing all their weird antics. So that was I was like, oh wow, this is a circus.
Well, you're also seeing like this pattern of like the defense is having these people like systematically removed.
We don't like you.
Yeah.
We're going to get you removed.
It's like, okay, in your case, you're taking photos for the news. Even if you were just taking photos, which is not the case, what are you going to do with them? Like, it's photos of a scene.
I was thinking that earlier of like what
you're a lawyer and you don't want to have your photos taken while you're lawyering. Like,
even the judge was like, she's registered media. You can't tell her she can't take photos.
Yeah.
They also said that I was taking pictures of people in the gallery, and I did not do that. I assumed that we weren't supposed to, and we couldn't take pictures of the jurors, of course. So I was very careful.
Yeah. And I remember you, even before the trial started, saying that. You're like,
yeah,
they're not going to let you take photos out there because
I was just going to take a picture out the window because the scenery
And I
is
was
so pretty.
like,
And Shelley was like, no, you can't do
Yeah.
that. I was
Yeah.
like, oh, shit. Okay, sorry.
like we were all very
That's
well
how
aware.
much by the rules she is. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not quite like her. She's totally
thought,
toes the
everybody
line
thought I
with
was
everything.
like really over the top. And I was like, no, you don't want to get in trouble with the judge.
Yeah.
So we had that shenanigan, and I can't remember. I think the only other shenanigans going on as Andy is testifying, his lawyers, it was really dry when they were questioning him. So I think that was kind of when we saw the jury falling asleep. He did have, I think that was the day of his cross, and he did very well at his cross. And I think that Michelle Burrows was trying to pull kind of some tricks on him. We're talking about the water getting poured on his head, and I don't know.
That was so dramatic.
There was some very nice moments. She was trying to be very dramatic, and he just, took the air right out of her sails. So I felt pretty good about that day for him, minus the distraction with the man who should have been court that they booted for no reason, essentially.
This is there was a point, what, day 4 or something?
I think that's
5?
3.
Okay, I got you.
What day did
That was the first person that got banned.
Oh.
And so that would have been Wednesday. Because I was just taking, that would have been Thursday, because that was the day I was taking photos. I was allowed to take photos. So I took photos all day long, and then I think they ended a little bit early. Jury's going in and out because there's all these like weird interruptions and discussions.
And you have to understand, the jury and people that are not used to these dramatics, when somebody yells out, there's a security risk.
oh my gosh.
You're just like,
Yeah,
should we
that is
have
an odd thing.
Yeah,
to
like,
say.
is there a bomb in the building?
exactly. I
Oh
mean,
no,
you
it's
don't
just
know.
a person sitting on a bench.
Oh, it's just a beef between John and him.
One time the deputy came in and like doors open, and he's like, it was very dramatic, and he goes, "We have a babysitting issue." And I was like, I thought, are they babysitting a witness and they lost them?
He's like, I need a babysitter tonight.
No, it literally was, and jury had to go out, stopped everything. Elizabeth Richter fundraised a lot of money so that she could pay for her lawyers and supposedly pay for a babysitter for her 4 or 5-year-old son. And we saw him out in the hallway. If they were so scared of us, they were always saying how we were intimidating, whatever. Her little boy was running around.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have my kid there with some half sane person
Yeah.
that she hangs
Or
out
if,
with.
or if you felt anyone was threatening there, you probably
Right.
wouldn't bring
You
your-
would not.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even bring my kid to a courthouse because I think that's inherently kind of a traumatic place.
Yeah, it's
They
maybe not the
lost
best place.
the kid on the elevator.
That was the babysitting issue with the jury.
And those elevators, if you haven't been in there,
they're so
you
weird.
have to program.
Yeah, you gotta pre-select.
You
the
can't get in the
floor.
elevator and like figure out where you want to go. You have to figure out where you're going beforehand and get in the specific elevator that it tells you to get in, and then you just ride up. So this kid got on an elevator and disappeared with at least 2 people watching him.
These are like Multnomah County people, or
Yeah, they're like Antifa, her Antifa friends that were
Gosh, that's
watching
terrible.
Gotcha.
her son. So,
So they can't figure out how to use the elevator or watch a kid.
I
He's
mean,
probably having the best time.
I'm
He's like,
sure the kid's like, woo, running up and down those hallways,
Trying to
getting
get
on the
a vending
elevator.
machine or something. Yeah.
I don't know how long it took them to find him either, and he was little, like kindergarten age probably.
Wow.
So
but this is whole time the jury's in there.
Yeah.
This is a like
yeah.
doors bust open.
So much drama.
We have a
yeah.
babysitting issue, and we're all like, "What is going on?" And
I'm like, now what?
and it took a little while to figure that out. So,
Like, how long did it take to figure that out?
probably like 15 minutes because we're all out in the hallway then, and I
Yeah.
could, I mean, everybody's there. You can hear them whispering about where's the kid, and the deputies talking to other deputies, and they're looking
Trying
for
to
this
find
kid.
look through every floor of the building.
Essentially, yes.
You could not make this up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't know about this. Yeah.
I wasn't there at that point. I'm sad I missed
Oh, it was
this.
just
It was
Because I
like,
heard that she
Doors
had brought
opening.
a child there, but I didn't hear about this.
oh yeah,
wild,
no,
yeah.
he was there most days, and it was, I believe, Tracy Molina, who is a repeat offender, multiple arrestee. I don't know that she's been convicted of anything, but she's very active with Antifa, and that's who's watching
Good.
the child, at least that day.
And we know her state of mind from the day we came out of court.
She's interesting. So the next day I come into court. Were you there that day? It was
I was
Friday.
there every day. Yeah.
I
That's
know,
the day
one
we got
day you came in
split.
a little bit later, and so I walked in whatever day this was, and the deputy, who I know by now, and he comes up to me.
He's the one that
and
told you.
He's like, "I just want you to know that you've been accused of
Recording.
recording video with your camera yesterday." And I was like, "What? No, I wouldn't do that. That's against the rules." And he's like, I know. I just want you to know." And I'm like, crap. I've already,
You're already in hot water.
I'm already, and I'm like, I would,
shredding on whatever.
I told him, I said, I don't even know how to record video with this camera. I've never done it. I only do it with my iPhone. And so I stay out and I'm messaging. I can't even remember who I messaged, but I'm like, this is a problem. I'm going to go message some people. So I don't go back in until the break. I don't even know who's testified or what's gone on. So I missed like an hour, and I get in at 10 a.m. and the judge comes in, no jury, and has everybody, everybody's standing up and said, I need to speak with the photographer. And John Rudolph is there. And I'm like, oh, well, I'm not going to be a photographer now. Great. And he actually, I went to say something to him before anybody was even in the courtroom. And he's like, don't talk to me. I'm like, oh, okay. No professional courtesy.
This is how cordial.
I will
everybody
remember.
was.
Yeah.
I will remember that.
Well,
So-
he I'll say that when he came in the day that all the drama happened with there must be one pool photographer and all of that, he did not seem to be aware of what was going on, because it was after you left your camera with Zane Sparling. He was the pool photographer. John shows up, sits next to me, and pulls his camera out. And I was like, you can't take pictures. There's only one pool photographer. And he was like, what?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And then right after that, they made him photographer.
So, and which
There's
he
so
only-
much drama.
So much
It
drama.
was, I'm telling you.
Well, it's also just I don't know. They clearly do not know how to navigate today's media. Because even that video thing, it's like,
Video is the norm now.
well, and also with phones and these and bigger cameras, you can do both. So it's like,
Yes.
how can they tell what you're doing anyway? And I don't know. It's just
Well, I think that's when they decided to take the phones
phone.
also.
they're like,
So-
there's nothing. Yeah.
And the hearsay of you can just accuse somebody of doing something
Right.
like
Yeah.
that.
And then it happened.
And then it happens.
Well, so I went back in court at the break, and I'm like, I'm just like, I think I put my camera in my bag, and I was like, whatever, okay, this is not happening today. And so we stand up for the judge, and she's like, I need to speak with the photographer. And John goes to stand up, and she said, no, her. And I was like, oh, great. So I stood up and she said, it's been brought to my attention that you have been recording video with your camera yesterday. And I was like, Your Honor, no, absolutely not. That's against the rules. And it just kind of was this back and forth of me saying that
it's just such a waste of time because it's just like
It was in
there's
front of
no
everybody.
way to like prove it. So
yeah,
It was in front of
What are we
everybody.
gonna-
They didn't ask to see your
it was
footage.
humiliating. Nobody asked
He's like,
to see anything.
I want to make sure you know that would be against the rules. And you're like, I know. Like,
I know it's against the rules, and I said I don't even know how to do video with this camera. and I had left it up on the railing just because I take pictures all the time, and the amount of time that it takes to focus, if I grab my camera and put it right up to my eye line, it's much easier, it's much quicker to focus than if I've like set it down. I have to pick it up, I have to the light changes.
readjust. Yeah.
So I just left it up there. And so it was one of the defendants or the attorneys that cooked up this story that I was actually videoing and maybe videoing the jury. And so then I left the courtroom because I got very emotional. Like I didn't want to be emotional in front of the judge. And so I went into the bathroom and cried. Like I felt humiliated and like, why are they picking on me? What is going on?
It was very uncalled for, and I think the judge was just horrific to you. And it was so targeted, and it was so like all eyes on her with no proof. Someone just accuses her of doing something, and here we are again.
One is day
and the
after
same
day.
thing, and it's just
it's
it was
just-
so unprofessional.
My job is quiet, professional. Like I don't even have my shutter going. I'm like, I just want to be in the corner taking, because I don't want to become part of the story.
Yeah.
But essentially, that's what happened. So I didn't go back into the courtroom, and Julie came out, and I said, Julie, I feel like I don't even want to be in there as public because they have clearly decided to target me. And no, people watching this might not know, but Andy is one of my best friends, and he and I was there with him during the attack in June 29, 2019, and I wrote an article about it. I've been doxxed, and they always connect me with him. They go after me, and in large part because I know Andy and they know we're friends and close friends. And so it was just so unsettling, and I felt like it was such a distraction to his case, which was so important. And I felt like no matter what I did, I was going to get in trouble, and I felt like that was going to reflect back onto his case. And I just was like, I can't go back in there because it's going to continue to be a problem. And I'm just going to get to the end of my story here, because after that day, I was banned from the entire courthouse, and I have no reason given why. Like, I still don't know. The judge, I came in on Monday and said, I've heard that I've been banned from the courthouse to the deputies and downstairs. And he goes, let me go get the letter and let me see, if you're on a list. And he goes, you are. And I'm like, well, can I see the letter? He just showed me the letter, said I couldn't take a picture of it. And there was a list of names on the folded underside. Mm-hmm. I'm like, I don't understand. What did I do? And he's like, it doesn't say here. I said, I'm literally was working and I haven't broken any rules. He goes, I know, but I'm going to have to escort you out. I said, no, you don't have to escort me out. I'm going to leave. And he said, you can stay on the property outside if you want. I'm not going to make you leave from the courthouse. So
so I'm free to sit on public property. Okay.
And it wasn't just you. Brandon Farley was
So you
also
guys can-
pre-banned. They also kicked Eli Ritchie out. Eli Ritchie is a live streamer, local. He's not really affiliated with anybody. He just likes
that was
to
the
show
next
what's happening.
disruption.
Yeah, he showed up quietly. He sat down, and
Hadn't
then
done
there was
anything.
another. We have a security risk
Again.
and he was like, okay. And so the deputy's like, we're gonna have to take you out. And he's like, okay, that's fine.
these people have literally assaulted him.
Yeah.
There's a case.
They've assaulted
against
and robbed him.
Alyssa Azar.
So they've abused him, and then they're saying he's a problem. You need to kick him out. So he went out to the hallway. Everybody got dismissed again because it was
That's
like
the one
a
where
whole
Elizabeth
kerfluffle.
said it on the stand, right? About the kid.
Oh, yeah. Elizabeth said,
She yelled it from the stand.
he doxed my child, which isn't true.
Yelling
So
at
she
who?
yelled
This
At
guy.
Eli, right
She
when
yelled
he
at
walked
him.
in.
Yeah.
And that was when the judge is like, okay, everybody out. So everyone got kicked out again. Eli's in the hallway. A bunch
this
of
point, she's
cops.
probably like,
a
what
bunch of
is-
cops are like around him.
Yeah.
And he's just like,
And Haley was also
Haley
there.
had shown up. And so he's like, I didn't do anything. This is like a breach of, freedom. And like, how
First
can I not be
Amendment.
here?
It's pretty much all just
But he
'cause
wasn't being argumentative.
She claimed that he had did
They
this.
just announced that there was a security risk when he walked
And the
in.
judge just decided that
So-
the defense could
All
ban
with the jury
people.
in there every time.
He ended up getting escorted out by the police calmly. He was like, okay, well, this
was
is messed
very
up, but bye,
cooperative.
guys. And we're like, bye, Eli.
Sorry.
Okay, in the meantime, Haley
This was
had,
incredible.
I'm not sure why
This
they
probably
decided.
infuriated me the most.
I guess they were picking people who had to get kicked out behind the scenes.
And who's Haley? Sorry.
Haley's the one who moved Katie Davis Court
The
with her butt.
disruptor.
and accused me of being fake
I
media.
got you.
She was the
Okay,
one with the big
okay.
sunglasses.
and
Yes.
Came in with the
interrupted
disruption.
city council.
I know
She's
who you're talking- I know
back.
who you're talking about. Okay.
They had decided that she also could not be in the courthouse.
Finally.
So she created this gigantic scene in the hallway and is just arguing with these police, and they're saying, you need to leave. And she's like, I'm not leaving. You need to show me exactly, the paperwork, and like, you're going to put me in jail, and then I won't be able to go get my child. And are you like hating my child
Making
too?
a
Like,
huge
She has a
scene.
child.
I think that's what she was saying. Like, I can't go get my kid from daycare. What am I going to do? Like, and so she's just, and
I
they're,
think she might have been talking about the child that she was watching.
She was watching Elizabeth's child.
I think
there was
she
something
was
about a child.
Either way,
because she was
She
talking
was
about
using
daycare.
Scary, yeah.
Okay, so, but the cops are like, Haley, come on.
They knew her by name.
And
Everybody-
she's just like,
I was there watching this
there's a
part.
whole scene, everyone's watching, and we're like, oh my gosh, what is she gonna do? Like, is she gonna hit them?
I will not move one foot.
Yeah.
And she
I was-
puts her foot down.
She
She's
did.
like, she's causing a huge scene, and like Eli just walks out, and she's like, whoa,
I don't want to spend like too much time on her, but I'm just curious. Do you think is she like drawn to that? Like she likes that chaos
Oh.
and drama, and she just
I
That's what
really
she's-
truly think that she's mentally ill.
Yeah.
I think she likes the drama
Well,
of
they
that.
use people like
and
that, the
and
mentally
they
ill.
use her. And they use Julie's
It's really
right.
sad.
They're
I was
using
standing
her.
right there, and the part, again, from an outside perspective, looking in of how the judicial system works in Multnomah County, the part that infuriated me the most is there was probably, what, 5 to
Deputies.
7 deputy sheriffs around her.
Wow.
And we're all out in the hall, and she puts her foot down, and she goes, I'm not moving this foot until I find out why I'm being removed. Have you ever heard of the Information Act? And she's like, and at first, there was a couple of the deputies that were basically saying to her, we don't have to provide that information. This is the judge's orders. We can remove you. She wasn't leaving. They were not doing anything. We're all out in the hall witnessing this. And then finally, by the end, one deputy goes, can we just get it to you after court at least? And I'm like,
That's not what would have happened to
Did
me.
you,
They
did
were treating
you
her like a
just say that?
child.
I mean, it
What
was
would they have
like
done
they
if somebody
placate
else?
to her. They know who she is. They just don't want media. They don't want stuff being brought against them. I mean, it's just such a nuisance and such a disruption that I witnessed that they just don't want more problems. They don't want people from the other side coming at them. Like, it was gross.
Was
Yeah.
that the same day that, the Carney freak show
Yes.
was waltzing around the
Yes.
hallways? Okay.
I think I heard somebody tweet something about like a steampunk something.
Yes.
Whatever. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
It was it's what is his name? Corey Elia, who actually originally had video of when Andy was attacked June 29th, an alternate view, and he sent it to him. He was like, you need this, bro. And then I guess he asked Andy later for $5,000 for it, and Andy said no, and he turned to the other side then.
And he's the one that shook John Rudolph's hand.
Yeah.
Okay.
He was glaring at us and just trying to be intimidating in the hallway. It
Yeah.
was extremely
But
disturbing.
they all said that we were doing that. And
They
Alyssa
said- yeah.
Azar was there that day. And
Yeah.
she was being very intimidating, but tweeting that we were being intimidating. Tara and I are witnesses and a victim in a case against her, a felony
I was
case.
just gonna say, if people don't know, she has a felony case coming up.
Yeah.
Against her
She's
that-
accusing
Different
us
ones.
of being intimidating in the hallways. I left because I was scared. I left
She's
immediately.
scary.
I was like, I need to leave this building right now. I feel like if I leave later, there's going to be somebody waiting outside for me.
Yeah.
I'm afraid to walk to my car.
Because
And
I don't know, people, if you don't know her name, like to me, she's just clearly like one of the higher ranks of Antifa.
she is. She walked in there like the queen of the crypt. Like,
Yeah.
That is the perfect.
I have arrived.
Well, she had a.
That's how she was
she
at the
had a
Jesus
volunteer.
March.
She
That's
had
how
a
she was at the
shiv
Jesus March too.
Yeah.
that she had to give up, and she goes, "It wasn't a shiv; it was a coffin nail that I hammered out herself." So Queen of the Crypt is like
Yeah, that's
perfect.
It's
She's
almost
wearing-
like worse than a shiv, though. It's
Right?
like a coffin nail.
a coffin nail that she had forged herself.
Okay.
Why
That
would
she's
you wear
wearing
that to
on,
the
on her
courthouse?
necklace? So Queen of the Crypt, and she's an OnlyFans gal too. So
She got there right when the Haley was out there with the sheriffs.
yes.
Yeah.
It was kind of like
It was
Also
just
seems like
mayhem.
when she shows up, yeah, that's when you know it's like this is an absolute circus.
Yeah.
She showed up at the Jesus event that all three of us were at, and she was clearly running opposition. She was, I mean, there was like 2,000 nice, wholesome Christian people from Portland area, very diverse crowd, super happy people, and maybe like 30 or 40 Antifa B team and some of the sharps
Yeah.
looking people that were trying to intimidate people. But luckily they had enough security. But she was clearly like, she
Yeah.
pointed at Tara and looked at her phone,
If you-
and other people then pointed at Tara.
If you watch football, it looked like she was like play calling.
Yeah,
She was calling the plays.
They were passing information along and pointing and like conferring and
So the idea that they were
and I left early
intimidated
from that too. As well.
by us is
Yeah.
and that's part of their public relations is to Proud Boys were there, or you know, like
Or they could have been there. We thought they might
the
come.
boogeyman, you know, we're the
somebody had a
boogeyman.
yellow flannel.
Oh,
So
the horror.
So they wanted us to be intimidated, and at the same time, they're running their public relations campaign that they were intimidated and scared in Multnomah County in the courthouse, and poor John and poor Elizabeth.
Right.
And it was also to raise money for their legal fund. They're still fundraising off of that. So that was the shenanigans.
Yeah. And that point, you were banned.
I couldn't
and
even come in the courthouse.
I was gonna. Is that the thing you were? I know you were pursuing some legal.
Yeah, I did a give, send, go, and I have an attorney hired. And the problem is I need to meet with him. I got sick right after I was at the courthouse, and
Probably because of all the stress.
it was
It was
I
really
guarantee
stressful.
you
It was some sleepless nights.
There was a lot of stress, and so I haven't talked to him for about a week. But here's the thing: I want to be able to continue to work at Multnomah County Courthouse.
Yeah.
And I don't want these shenanigans to happen again. So he's hopefully going to help me figure out what to do about that.
To at least get some access to the public courthouse.
Yes, as a member of the media, whether
Yeah.
I'm freelance or not.
Yeah.
Though I think Ezra Levant will maybe write me a contract whenever I need it, hopefully. So.
Yeah. Well, that whole media thing, like I said, it just upsets me because I don't know if it's the clerks or whoever makes those calls to like who is the designated people, but there's clearly like preferential treatment to which press they pick.
Well, and I think
that
it
should
caused.
not be happening.
I think that it caused, from the outside, like from my perspective, it caused a lot more drama because all of a sudden, like on day 2, it was like, why is there a blackout of the courthouse?
Mm-hmm.
It was all over social media. You know, like I'm more like constitutionalist. Like I thought they should have had whoever they wanted in there filming. We should have had, like, it should have been open. I mean, this is a high profile case. We've all been affected in different ways. And I don't believe we should have special treatment over
Yeah.
anything on their side. I don't know why they couldn't have press, their own people, us have our own people. Like, I think it should have been live streamed. I think the court should have been separated. Like, there was just so much more drama about like, oh, now we have to turn off our phones on day 3 and put them in the basket with everybody's all mixed together, which
Yeah.
people were
Yeah.
having problems
Mine
with
was
that.
on when I got it back.
Which is also very
Yeah.
weird.
No,
It was
it's
a little
just-
disturbing.
The whole thing, it was just not.
It was
Well, that's an interesting thing because it's just weird to think if they did it that way. Because I see what you're saying. Like, I understand they're afraid of swaying the jury, but it's like, why not just have everyone have access to this and like.
Yeah.
It was so limited.
Yeah.
I mean, already in Portland, like we already know that there's certain
elements.
thank you. You know, as far as
The
media
progressive
coverage, yeah.
stronghold.
And
Yeah.
but then to not have to have it so limited and then have so much controversy surrounding it, and then getting to the point where we were like afraid to even put anything on social media, like, and so people that normally would see us like putting stuff, like everything's just blacked out, like just that fear factor of like, oh, we can't post a picture in the lobby, like, are we enough off courtroom grounds to post a picture? Or
I was afraid to post my drawings.
yeah, it was like, just really
just drawings.
it
of
just
the court.
caused a lot. The way that the whole trial was ran, I think, for both sides was just caused a lot more theater and unsettling. It was so drawn on. There was so many interruptions. There was so many, stopping, the jury coming out, like testimony was stopped repeatedly. It was from start to finish.
The narrative is now all hearsay too, because it's like you just have the people who were there who can say what happened,
Yeah.
but like they caused a lot of distrust.
And they've continued to run kind of a public relations campaign on Twitter. That's how they get their news out. And it's been, the right caused all kinds of disruptions, but we still prevailed, and honestly, I think that it was very confusing for the jury to understand what it is that John and Elizabeth actually did. The other people that defaulted, I think it would have been easier to make a case against them if they had shown up, because they literally assaulted Andy.
Yeah, no, at least one of them did, right? Yeah.
No,
all of them?
all three
Yeah.
of them did. I actually got the pictures of Catherine Belia assaulting him, and then the photo that they used in the article of her is one that I took, and that was all on June 29th. And then the sandwich deputy shot overkill,
right.
whatever.
The person who changed their name to Deputy Shot. I don't know
Yeah.
who it is, yeah.
Shot deputy.
Sandwich, overkill, deputy, I don't know. It's a weird name. And them. He was in the lobby of the courthouse the last day downstairs. And they were actually taking video of me outside while I was inside, while I was sitting outside. But he assaulted Andy that day. And he actually, I believe, was found guilty of assaulting Adam Kelly on that June 29th. And that's the guy he had like staples in his head because he'd been,
that was so bad.
It was a
Bad
vicious
head injury.
Yeah, it was
Horrible.
a vicious, terrible head injury. When I interviewed Adam right after that, I mean, he still was having issues with his memory. So those three people clearly physically assaulted Andy.
Yeah.
Elizabeth and John's role in their organization, and it is an organization run much like ISIS or the Taliban or the GIA. They run like an Islamic terrorist organizations. They don't have an official group, and they organize independently. They are the shot callers.
Yeah. What was really frustrating to me, even the day that I was there, was like, I don't think they played video when I was there, but I've seen the videos enough times of the night event and the other event. It's like the jury had to at least know that they were there.
Right.
You can see that they're both there, and that's what's frustrating to me is like people still refuse to say that this is like an organized group of like, yeah, they're all there and they're saying beat the fuck out of Andy or whatever they were saying. It was something to that effect. And
they're patting each other on the back and walking around together.
I don't know.
And it's not a parade.
You'd have to at least understand.
It's not a parade. They're
that is an organized thing.
They were in a parade together. It's just a parade.
If you're out in the middle of, I don't know what time that was, like midnight.
It was late,
and you're chasing somebody down in the middle of the streets.
right?
He texted me from the hotel that night, and I slept through it. I don't hear texts at night, and I think I got the text at like 2:30 in the morning. So it was late.
So, but anyway, that's what I don't know. Just
It's a dusky parade.
That people and the defense lawyers were saying a lot of this stuff. We don't know who did it, but you can clearly see this group in black bloc doing it.
They
And
know
it's like,
who's in block. We know they know who these people are.
It's frustrating, yeah.
For her to even come out and she called them human terrorist, and that they should have stepped up and turned themselves in so that John and Elizabeth didn't have to take the fall for them.
Mm-hmm.
But John and Elizabeth are the ones, they know who they are. And they made sure that people knew who Andy was because they knew they'd beat the crap out of Andy. Mm-hmm. That's how it works. Yeah. And that's what John does that. He does that online, and he does that in person, he says, "Oh, so-and-so's here. Oh, I recognize so-and-so." And he brags about how good he is at spotting people from far away because he can spot their gait and their body language and their clothing. Like, he knows. Like,
And especially somebody like Andy, like that's like their number one
yeah, their number
target,
one target.
you know,
They have
and-
studied him closely.
And they had seen him before in this, because Andy will show up sort of trying to disguise himself as Antifa.
Yes.
So they were looking for all that stuff. But yeah,
He's done it successfully many, many, many times, and
yeah.
they didn't find him.
Mm-hmm.
I just happened to know. Like, I remember one time I ran into, he shoulder checked me, and I almost hit him with my camera because I'm like, some Antifa person's shoulder checking
Are you
me.
serious?
And I looked back, and I was like, oh, that's Andy. That's so funny. I mean, he is actually much better at it than they think. Just that night, I think the dynamics were that they could spot him, and they did, and they knew. John knew when he said who Andy was. And there's a lot of conversations that happened outside of in person that happened after that weren't allowed as part of the evidence that would have made the picture, let's just say, a lot more complete.
yeah.
And I believe that they are, Elizabeth Richter and John Hacker are partially responsible for that beating that Andy received.
Mm-hmm.
And they believe that he deserves that beating because they call him a stochastic terrorist for reporting on the news.
Yeah.
When in reality,
Well, speaking of,
they are, what they do is stochastic terrorism.
Mm-hmm.
What John does is he takes and he villainizes like Julie, who was just an attender at this event, and he makes your information public, and then he labels you far right. He says if you're affiliated with neo-Nazis, or if she's affiliated with Proud Boys, and that enrages people because of the way that the media has spoon-fed this information to people.
They're kind of trigger words.
Yes, they're trigger words to get people to go after and hurt people. There is a case that I can't speak of that is horrifying that literally occurred because of the rhetoric around these people pass around. And I'm hoping that it will come to light soon, that could have ended in somebody's death. And they have killed people based on this rhetoric. And it's people like John and Elizabeth that are pushing these narratives that are not true about mega grannies, average people who just want to show up and express their First Amendment rights.
They'll dig through everything you have and find something
Yeah.
to twist and then make your life miserable so people are scared to come out and say anything for truth.
That's
or
the thing is, like, with John in particular, with me, like, I don't go stalk their pages. I don't even know if I've ever publicly came out on my own to say anything like bad about them. Like, I don't really want to be, I never want to
Associated
be
with them.
involved in this whole
You
thing.
don't get
It's
mixed
just
up in that.
no, it's just that, like, if you saw some of the stuff, like, I have people that now watch my social media because I don't want to, like, I have a regular life outside of this, but they will take stuff that I put on social media, like on my personal Facebook, Instagram, or whatever, screenshot it. John just recently, a couple days ago, put something out on social media. I was talking about myself. I was basically saying, like, I'm leaving the courthouse. I don't feel safe right now. I feel like there's witness intimidation. I was talking about myself being a witness to Multnomah County, you know, but they go on my personal stuff, screenshot it, then put it on Twitter with my name, not my Twitter name, but
And your
my
picture.
real name and my picture. No, he doesn't know what I was referring to myself. You know, I'm not there as paid media. I was a witness to the trial. I went down there to observe. But because he put out there and said, this is why Julie's a liar. And I have multiple people now in security that are sending me all this stuff. They're like, oh, John's at it again with Julie. It's unnecessary. So even though he says he doesn't dox, after that, it gets shared, you know, it goes around. And the same thing with these other, like,
Somebody else takes it upon themselves then to dox you.
Yeah,
And that's
and
happened
it's-
to
That's what happened
Tara.
to me, yeah.
That's happened to me. That's happened to Julie. And they come after, if you work, they come after your job.
Oh yeah, they posted my husband's job information on Twitter to get people to start calling in to get him fired for what? I don't know, because there's nothing
Yeah, he hasn't done anything.
He hasn't.
You haven't done anything.
I haven't, but they think he's got all these Twitter accounts that are not his. So that's whatever. And they call me a pedophile, and we are groomers, and they talk about our neighborhood and my kids, where they would go to school. And
it's one of the reasons it's so frustrating to see, like, just listening to his lawyer talk about him in such a defensive way. Obviously, he's paid to do that, but it's just like, I know all the stuff we're talking about are tactics that this guy has done for like years. And
well, I'm newer to it. So to me, I was like, I used to ask Chelly, like, why is he doing that? Like, I didn't understand. You know,
he wants to make your life very uncomfortable.
Yeah, I didn't understand.
Yeah.
But
They've
now
taken pictures of her license plate. They've showed up at her place. They showed up at her place. You know,
Yeah.
they put stuff on Twitter on
and
me.
look at us.
Yeah.
What are we doing to these people? Other than shining a light.
They take like one picture and they'll put like, oh, Julie, who lives here, now has her boyfriend Chris Reyes like up here. She's the new person that's coming out against the LGBTQ community with drag, blah blah. No, that's not it. I do stand up against underage children being involved in drag. Period. I don't even personally have a problem with the gay lesbian community or drag.
Yeah.
I'm not okay with the sexualization of children or having the children involved in it.
Yeah. Well, I was trying to say, like, it's so frustrating because they painted him and Elizabeth in a light that's just like, they don't dip into this world, and these people are in the thick of, they're like leading, they're the tip of the spear of all this bullshit. And it's like, they've been, like I said, they've been doing this for years, and they have these online sort of warfare, that the stuff we were just talking about, and that's kind of what they
Stochastic terrorism.
kind of what they live for. You know?
That's what's doing it.
And the people who were fresh targets of theirs have no idea what's about to happen to them.
Yeah.
Because it's just like unnatural behavior. Like, you don't expect somebody to treat you like that or for that to happen to you, and then it does, and you're like...
And I think it's probably so surprising because it is organized and it's fast and it's like...
So organized.
Yeah. Nobody's expecting that level of organization and like control and coordination.
But I fastly learned, like, it doesn't matter if you present the facts, times, dates, or anything, just like our attack on the waterfront in Portland at the worship event. It doesn't matter what you try to prove, because I make the mistake sometimes of still trying to rationalize with people because I want to just like, I'm
telling you the truth.
Yeah, and only events that I was there firsthand, but it doesn't matter because even though there were kids involved and they say they weren't, but then, well, if a kid wasn't hurt, then it's not okay. They didn't chant Hail Satan, they did, there's video. Well, that's not that bad. You know, it's just always backpedaling and making excuses for what I think is political violence, which I don't believe that should take place on either side.
And religious discrimination.
Yes.
Because they'll show up just because you're a group of Christians who want to exist inside of Portland.
Yeah,
in
there's
public.
absolutely an anti-Christian element to it.
Oh, yes. And they have succeeded, and I think especially with this trial, Elizabeth and John being found not liable, they've succeeded in normalizing officially political violence against the right and against Christians. Sorry, I'm losing my voice now. So, and that's their goal, is they normalize political violence. So nobody, well, what were you doing there? Why would you bring kids to that? Why did you bring kids to that worship event? You should have known.
You should have known you can't exist in Portland. You know how things work here. Don't bring kids to an event in the daytime on the
Saturday
waterfront.
at 11 a.m. tourist zone.
They just present this thing like, we're not trying to perpetuate this, and they absolutely are.
they
That's what
are.
you're saying. They're
Yes.
trying to normalize violence at every event, and like.
But I think the sad thing is, from outside perspective, in people in other states, we've normalized it almost like, even us that have been caught in the middle of it, it's become so normalized here.
We expect it.
That, not only do we expect it, but like even the little things that should not be acceptable are being accepted. And now we're just trying to find the bigger things, within an attack.
That is true.
Which really, the whole thing should not have happened.
I just got pepper sprayed this time. It wasn't really a big deal.
Just
I'm
scream
fine.
things in my face with like a megaphone.
I mean, they took some pictures and put my address on the...
They just threw
Twitter.
all the equipment in the river, but it was insured. You know, I mean, stuff like that. At a religious gathering, like, it's just
At least nobody
not-
died.
It's kind of like their old, because I know they've been using fireworks for years, and there's just fireworks. It's like, but
Next
they can,
to a
like,
gas
blow your hand
station.
off or
I
your
just
head off.
want to clear, it is their illegal fireworks.
They're like mortars.
Which are dangerous.
Yeah.
But no, they don't just use fireworks. They duct tape fireworks together with gunpowder or batteries. And
So it's
then
even more explosive. Yeah.
Yes, and Julie got hit. She had burns from battery acid with a firework. So she had, at that event on the waterfront where they claimed that, nothing bad happened, it was Proud Boys' fault. I've seen the photos of her hand and her foot that are bruised and blistered from acid and from getting hit so hard with an IED. And that is what an IED is.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it was residual or whatever. Like, it did happen really fast that day. But just the way that they placate, the way that they undermine, the way that they, and I can put my pictures. The girl that I was there with is an ER nurse, and it definitely would have destroyed the child.
She was holding an 8-month-old baby when she got hit with the IED.
I wasn't holding her.
Oh, I thought you were,
I wasn't holding her. I leaned over the stroller, and I didn't know the family at the time, but there was just stuff coming our way, and Jamie had covered the boys' eyes, and the baby was just sitting there. So I just put my body over the stroller, and
she got
hit my arm and my foot. You just have to be in you're not used to being in that situation.
It's
I just
war.
went down there. I'm definitely more anti-big government. I went down there with a friend. I didn't know anybody there. I literally went with a friend just to listen to this pastor that I heard had been wrongfully persecuted in Canada coming down to speak about big government and being locked up during opening up his church.
It's appalling that people who say they're anarchists show up to harass people who say the government is overreaching. The government is harassing us. They're working to protect the government.
Well, they use the police when they need to, and they're happy to have the DA prosecute people on the right. So these people aren't anarchists.
It's just bizarre.
I was thinking it's why my heart breaks for people that live downtown, but it's also why it's kind of a ghost town now. K2 just did a story on how this was a horrible summer economically for downtown, and I 100% believe it because summer it's usually oh yeah, there's great weather and stuff, but not only is there fentanyl, but people are all used to even if you live down there, you don't want we had a whole year of these mortars and other stuff, just bottles of stuff being thrown and
Molotov cocktails.
Yeah, all sorts of stuff, and that's why I was saying my heart breaks for
The
people.
tourism
that live down
has
there
to have tanked.
The last thing I want
who
to say
wants to
about
come
the
here?
waterfront thing, just to end, because I don't want to, I try not to even think about it, is the fact that, I'm sure when we get done this, John will have his little, they'll all have their thing, their diagnostic, of what really happened, what didn't happen, what we said that's true, all this stuff. But the bottom line is that it was a premeditated attack. They knew children were there. When they came over the hill, they could see it. They could see children were there. It was a religious gathering with a religious figure, a political attack. I didn't know anything of the backstory. I shouldn't have to. I've lived in Oregon, the Portland area, my whole life. I should be able to go to an event like that without having to do all the research of what church is supporting at this and that,
right.
And just for the fact that to this day, and John and I have had words about this at a school board meeting. We've talked about it before. I talked to Claudio about it in Oregon City, because all I want them to do is basically denounce that this was an acceptable behavior, and they can't. And that's just
they won't.
Yeah, because they want to be able to show up no matter who's there, and even if there's a bunch of kids, and they're still going to do that. At least from my perspective, I don't know.
When the case with Alyssa, when we were there, they threw fireworks. They were small.
Oh, at a child.
Probably a 10-year-old boy.
A mom and a child were standing together, and they threw fireworks at them.
Yeah. And it landed on the kid's, right next to his feet and went off.
And they were, it wasn't like they tossed it into a crowd. They were just standing there together.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. Who's going to want to bring their kids downtown with...
That was at the Saturday market. That was in the middle of the Saturday market.
Yeah. So, I wanted to really quickly, before we wrap it up, just because Julie's here, you guys have done the fave thing, but can we get your Northwest favorite things really quick? You know what I'm talking about? I do these questions every episode of I just want to do...
You'll be able to answer these questions.
Your favorite
person,
place, or thing in the Northwest. Could be a restaurant, could be a location, a mountain or something.
Well, I live in the Columbia Gorge, so...
Oh, that's beautiful, yeah.
I mean, it is outside of Portland. My office has been downtown Portland for years.
Okay.
I used to absolutely love the city, but I love the rivers. I love the Gorge.
Okay. The Gorge is, that's a good... Nobody's actually mentioned that one, but that's there's a lot in the Gorge, so that's a good favorite, I like it. What about your least favorite? I mean, we just talked about a lot of terrible things, but
Your least favorite thing about the Pacific Northwest?
My least favorite.
I'm putting you on the spot.
There's honestly nothing that I used to dislike about the Pacific Northwest. It's why I've stayed up here. My daughter does photography. She loves the waterfront, Old Town. I can't stand the worry now of her going into the city. It has to literally be the politics. And yeah, I don't really want to say anything else.
Yeah,
just
no,
because I'm
that makes
more
sense.
involved in that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just, it does feel very hard to like, I don't know. There's no freedom of like opinion anymore. It seems like in Portland because it's a progressive,
Strong.
mega place. Yeah,
My husband was talking to someone yesterday who's a Democrat and whatever, but he's very upset, cautiously speaking about how he's very upset about just the way things are now. And so this is at a playground and the kids are all playing and they're just having a conversation. But he was like, I don't want to sound like a conservative.
right.
But
That's what everyone prefaces that. Yeah.
like you have to do the penance of saying that before you're like, but there's a problem.
And that's why, like, I'm sorry to curse, but I don't give a fuck anymore. Like, I'm just
Right.
it shouldn't matter, like, what your political views are. We don't need to preface every statement with saying
Right?
that,
Yeah.
you know? And I'm just tired
So
of it.
funny.
Yeah, me too.
Our neighbor was like, I don't want to sound like Trump, but we're like, whoa.
I do want to say that I think, and I hope this isn't accurate, but in the future, I would like to have a conversation about the COVID protocols that the state of Oregon followed and potentially what's coming back right at us.
That would be more my
Yeah.
jam.
Yeah.
'Cause
Yeah,
I
we
will-
can do that. Yeah.
I would
I
like to
won't
talk
be doing
about
I'll be
that.
an activist against that.
we
Absolutely.
could do.
We'll
yeah,
be
an
putting up a
episode.
fight.
I did see, like, I was busier this week, but I saw a lot of people tweeting about, like, it's coming back this winter.
I've seen more
and all
people
this
with
stuff,
masks.
and,
Yeah. Even in my
se-
town.
Election
Yeah.
season.
Well, it's
Yeah.
either going to be this winter or next winter or both.
I think
No,
they're
I-
going to
Oh, it's
start it
starting
now.
now. I think
it's
It's gonna
starting
start.
now. Yeah.
They're going to start sending messages, you know, like through the TSA or whatever, like wherever
the
they're going to start
agencies.
unrolling the fear, then I think will cascade
I
out
say
from there.
masking on planes by the middle of October, but I definitely want to talk about that. 'Cause
Yeah.
that's something that I would still document, but that I will fight.
I think
Yeah.
that the Pacific Northwest is going to see the greatest division that they've seen when these mandates come back into effect, because the first time, even in my circle, that are pretty nonconformist, we'll just say, still, like, you know, the first 3-4 weeks was like leery, then like, oh, this and that. Not anymore.
No.
No,
People know.
everybody's like, there's just been too much, you know, proof that's come out. And there's people speaking out that I'm like, finally, like, that never spoke out before. And I think if this goes down the way that we think it is, I think that there's going to be a great divide.
Yeah.
We
Yeah,
just
absolutely.
shed the last of the restrictions.
Yeah.
The medical mask mandate just went away.
Well, and it's interesting because, like, I think it was yesterday, a couple of days ago, basically all of the moderate or conservative states had this, like, no vaccine mandate thing. Do you know what I'm talking about? It was probably like 15 states that were like, you cannot have any laws requiring a mandate. So yeah, this division's like cementing, and you could see it really playing out if they do.
We were
go
the
after-
second to last in the country to open our schools.
Yeah.
And we
It's a
wonder
long
why
time,
we're
yeah.
49th
Yeah.
in our education system.
And yet we're still pumping like billions of dollars into it.
Oh yeah.
But,
Lots.
yeah. But we should do
Lots.
that. I was thinking, if Ben sees this, he's not going to do it, but I'd love it if Ben West came on to talk about that. But I don't, it's too hot politically. I don't think he'd do it, but he has a medical
might.
background, so
Yes.
maybe he would, you know. But yeah, we should do that sometime.
That would be good.
He's had some pretty outspoken things lately.
Yeah.
I love that.
Is there anything else we want to talk about before we wrap it up?
Well, I mean, yeah, there's an endless list, but I just mentioned my big one.
Okay. Well, yeah, we'll wrap it up. Thank you, ladies, so
Thank
much
you
for
so
coming in.
much.
Yeah.